December 4th, 1998, New Haven, Connecticut. Suzanne Jovin, a brilliant 21-year-old Yale senior, was winding down in her apartment, situated above a campus police station. By all accounts, it was a typical Friday night. But in the span of just 90 minutes, Suzanne's routine turned into a nightmare. Found brutally stabbed 17 times, just 2 miles from Yale's campus, her death sent shockwaves through the community, and left behind the chilling question, who killed Suzanne? Theories abound: an enraged professor, a jilted admirer, a random act of violence, but decades later, her case remains unsolved. Tonight, we unravel the story of Suzanne's final hours, the perplexing evidence, and the lingering mysteries of a life stolen too soon. I'm Laura. I'm here with my best friend Marina, and this is Grim.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Curious about how you can achieve smooth, natural-looking, long-lasting filler results? The Juvederm collection of fillers has 6 unique gel fillers that add subtle volume and are designed for different needs in specific areas of the face, like lips, cheeks, chin, smile lines, under eyes, and jawline. Ask your licensed specialist for a full face assessment today and download the Alle app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments and get a look that's true to you. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
I have at least two questions.
Yes.
One is, I don't know how I haven't heard of this case.
Not a question.
How have I not heard of this case?
Yep.
And 17 was my lucky number until you ruined it.
Yep, sorry.
That's not a question either.
And I just have one question. Oh, I was going to make a joke and say one statement, and then I said the wrong thing.
Okay.
We're off to a great start. It is Monday.
It's a long Monday.
And it's a very long Monday. And we're coming up on the end of the year, so things just get a little crazy at work. And here we are.
Let's just circle back in January.
We are officially in circle back season.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, so I also had not heard of this case, despite it apparently being a very, very well-known cold case in Connecticut. So when this was a suggestion by Sarah M., by the way. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
And when I saw this, I was like, oh, I'll do a handful of unsolved cases around, this is, December is around Christmas time. And as I started to get into this one, I was like, oh, nope, I need to dedicate an entire episode to this. It is only one part, don't worry. I feel like y'all are gun shy with that now.
I'm really surprised, though. I haven't heard of this. Because when you said Yale, I was thinking again about the other case, the other Yale case that you did.
Yeah.
What was her name?
You had to ask.
I take it back.
Annie Lee.
That's it.
Okay. This is episode 86. Okay.
We've done a few.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. 4 sources for well, actually, before I do the sources, I'll do Patreon shout outs. Woo woo. Okay. We're going to start off strong with Marisol R.
Marisol R. We love you so much.
I couldn't read my own writing there. Sorry. That was the very first one. Starting off strong. Alexis H.
Alexis H. We love you so much. Wait, did we give Marisol enough love?
I didn't give you enough. Well, then I also hesitated mid saying your name because I panicked that I didn't pronounce it right. So between the spelling and the pronunciation, we love you.
We love you so much. Thank you.
Much.
Okay. Now
much more than you'd believe. Okay. Sonia F.
Sonia F. Thank you so much. Wait, who was number 2?
Alexis H.
Alexis H, we love you.
Alexis and Sonia, we love you.
Alexis H, we love you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Sonia. Sonia F.
Sonia
yes.
F, we love you so much. Thank you.
We love you, Sonia. Sonia much. Okay. Olivia.
We
love you, Olivia. Woo, woo.
We love you so
We
much.
love you.
Thank you.
I was looking down to make sure it was still recording, kind of hoping it wasn't, so we can start fresh.
Nope.
Nicole M.
Nicole M.
We love you, Nicole.
so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Kate E. Kate E. I know. That's why I had to do it. Kate
Thank you
E.
so much. We love you.
Thank you. Kaya D.
Kaya D.
Kaya.
Woo, woo.
We love you
so much.
Thank you.
Where's the yodels?
I don't do them. You do them.
I disagree.
Annie B.
Annie B.
Annie,
we love you so much. Annie B. You're the best. Thank you.
That was a roller coaster. Alex B.
Alex B.
We love you.
We love you so much.
Emma,
Emma,
thank you very
woo,
much.
woo.
We love you
so
Thank
much.
you for supporting
Thank
us,
you.
Emma. Madison P.
Madison P. We love you so much. Thank you so much.
Amy G.
Amy G.
Amy G.
Woo, woo.
We love you, Amy.
We
Thank
love
you very much. Janinji? How did we pronounce
Jumanji.
No.
Janinji.
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 I'm choosing that and I love it. We love you.
We do love it, and we love you, and we love Jumanji.
We love it all.
Janinji. We love you so much. Thank you so much.
Shayla H.
Shayla H. Woo, woo. We love you so much, Shayla H.
We love you. Tara C.
Tara C.
Tara.
Is it Tara or Tara?
I don't know. Nobody tells me the pronunciation, and then I just
Tara,
have to figure it out myself.
Woo, we love you so much.
either way. And closing us out, Chelsea O.
Chelsea O. It was it was multiple H's, wasn't it? It was like
Yes.
Chelsea O.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! We love you so much,
Okay.
Chelsea O.
It's over. We're done. You made it through. Thank you. But really, as always, thank you so much. We love you.
We do. And by the way, my husband is within earshot of us, and I'm pretty sure I heard the door open so he can go play in traffic.
That'll continue all night, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now that we're through that, I will talk about the sources I found. So for this case, as usual, I found a lot of articles, including a lengthy 1999 article in Vanity Fair called Murder at Yale. I also found an incredibly detailed documentary, which is available on YouTube, called The Green Jacket Killer.
Ooh.
And the producer, Jeff Mitchell, was a childhood friend of one of the suspects, and he did a tremendous amount of investigation, including gathering firsthand accounts, and he used my favorite thing in the world, maps. So many maps. There's so many maps in
I
this.
thought you were going to say MapQuest. Did he do it to try to prove his friend's innocence?
Kind of, but it was more like he was just trying to get justice for Suzanne.
Okay.
So really just trying to figure it out, and as a byproduct, basically saying his friend didn't do it, but it also is like, we need to
Trying to
instead
solve it.
look at who did it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And for knowing that there's likely a natural bias there, he did a really nice job of genuinely just trying to collect and assess. Really, he would have actually been a great co-host on our podcast because he was collecting
okay.
lots of information, and like every little tributary he went and evaluated. So
Okay. And
really
he loves
nice
maps, so.
he does love maps. I will say, so it's all in like, I don't know, hour and a half or so. It's called a 5-part documentary, but it's all in one. It is a little dry, a little like, it's not a Netflix, you don't have the violins in the beginning, but incredibly detailed and very well thought out. So depending on your appetite, you can watch it.
I bet you Laura has fully regurgitated every piece of information
all
that's
of
in
them.
it, so you can save yourself
yeah.
the time and just listen to Laura.
Every single piece of detail.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Okay. Suzanne Jovin. I'm not sure. She's from Germany, so I don't think that's how you say it, but it seems like it is.
Oh, I was thinking it was Spanish or Mexican
I
because
know.
Nahuela Joven. Joven means young.
Yeah,
in Spanish.
maybe they're actually. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe they are actually from Spanish descent. I don't
think
know.
Joven means young or old. Don't quote me.
Well, in French, it's jeune. So for some reason, that's young. So I would think it's young.
Okay. Anyway, so
We are
we
starting
got
off
to
strong.
her name.
Okay. She, Suzanne, was born on January 26th, 1977 in Göttingen, Germany, to parents Thomas and Donna, followed shortly after by younger sister Rebecca. In addition to Rebecca, Suzanne also had 2 stepsisters from Thomas's previous marriage, Ellen, and Diana. Thomas was a biophysicist, and Donna was a linguist. Already cool, but even cooler, the family actually lived in a 14th century castle.
Oh, wow.
Which is super cool.
That is cool.
I told my husband this, and he was like, is that Anna Delvey? And I was like, no.
What is
Anna Delvey?
What is that?
What is that? She's the, you have to watch, what is it? Not Making a Murderer. That's a different documentary. Inventing Anna on Netflix. She is a real life like socialite who lied about a whole bunch of things. Really
yes.
good.
Okay, we were talking about that the other day.
Yep.
Okay.
Suzanne's parents ran the Max Planck Institute for Biophysical Chemistry.
Wow.
Methinks they were smart. Her father, a member of the German Foreign Service, moved the family frequently due to his career, so Suzanne grew up in a variety of places around the world. This international upbringing shaped Suzanne into a well-rounded and adaptable individual. While attending school in Germany, Suzanne studied Latin in the 5th grade and French in the 7th. She also played the piano and the cello, and in high school she double majored in biology and chemistry, which I first thought I misread that, but I think there are actually double majors in their high schools there. So
wow.
Pretty intense. Passing her exams with top marks. After she finished high school, the family moved to the United States, ending up in Massachusetts. And it was always assumed that Suzanne would go to college in the United States since her mother had gotten her PhD from Yale and her older half-sisters had both graduated from Harvard.
I was going to say, when you said Massachusetts, I was thinking Harvard, but then you said her mom was a Yale
and
alum.
And then we came back to Harvard and you were like, yes. You were just pleased with that.
I felt smart.
Yeah.
Like biophysicist smart.
Yeah. Needless to say, very smart family. And indeed, Suzanne's academic prowess and well-rounded personality, as well as maybe the help of her mother's degree, earned her a spot at Yale, where she majored in political science and international studies. She was known for being bright, outgoing, and involved in various extracurricular activities. She was passionate about her studies and had plans for a career in public service or diplomacy. She was known to be smart, independent, and incredibly driven. Her friends and professors at Yale described her as a focused and hardworking student, someone with a bright future.
Did she light up her room?
She did. I was going to close her intro with that, but you really spoiled it.
Sorry, I jumped to the...
Yeah, she really did. She did have a close group of friends. She loved hiking and other outdoor activities, and she was also known for her generosity and kind heart, which manifested in being deeply engaged in volunteer work. Her friends described her as lively, fun-loving, and full of energy. One college friend recalled how much Suzanne laughed and enjoyed herself, like when she was dancing at a popular hangout in New Haven or caroling during their freshman year, which ended up with them drinking schnapps with a Christian group. And I wish I had that full story.
Wow.
Because that sounds like it was a fun night.
Schnapps is disgusting, though.
Schnapps
are disgusting?
Singular?
Or schnapps is
singular.
disgusting?
Also, I always feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong when I say schnapps.
Schnapps.
But peppermint schnapps is definitely tasty around Christmas time.
So, funny story about peppermint schnapps. My husband and his friends drink it, and the day of my wedding, there was one bottle of champagne in the limo. The men took the ride to the venue first, and they drank the one bottle of champagne and left me the toothpaste schnapps to drink, which I took one sip and was like, who drinks alcoholic mouthwash?
Yeah, no, that's like the first and only time I enjoyed gin throughout a night.
Ugh.
And I was like, Christmas trees! And that is not what I was saying.
No.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, so fun.
I don't like gin.
Anyway, I still would like to hear. I wish I knew the full story there because that sounds fun.
Yes.
Friends further described Suzanne as sparkly and so cool, mentioning her beautiful singing voice, love for theater, and ability to make people laugh. Suzanne stood out for doing things in her own way and being different. Her sister, Rebecca, described her as really lively and noted that she sang in rock bands during high school. David Bach, a Yale graduate and friend from Germany, admired Suzanne's mix of traits, saying she was extremely serious academically, but also great fun to be around. He remembered her as very traditional, stylish, and feminine, while also being rebellious and liberal. So we said, she lit up a room and she sounds so cool, and she was beautiful.
I know.
Just all around an amazing person and absurdly smart. Absurdly smart. On Friday, December 4th, 1998, intent on finishing her crucial senior essay, The 21-year-old used her student ID card at 4:24 a.m. to enter the cluster of buildings she lived in on campus.
That's so early.
It was like late, like she had been up studying all night. She was then working in a nearby computer room for much of the morning, and Suzanne told a fellow student that she was in a rush because she was also facing a deadline to apply to graduate schools. So no big deal, just finishing your senior thesis. And she was applying to Columbia, George Washington, Georgetown, Johns Hopkins, Tufts, and of course Yale.
I can feel the crushing weight of senior finals.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no.
And this was not just finals. This was her senior thesis. And that was interestingly on Osama bin Laden, even though this was 1998.
Oh.
Just before noon, Suzanne picked up the keys for a Yale station wagon she would use later that day to transport people to a pizza party she was organizing for the Best Buddies program at Trinity Lutheran Church, 4 blocks from campus. I thought your cat was one of your kids.
Nope.
Gave it a glance. Best Buddies, which she'd started volunteering for during her freshman year and now she ran the Yale chapter of, was a program that paired college students with adults who had intellectual disabilities. So as I said, she is just, not only is she doing amazing schoolwork, hanging with her friends, being super cool, but she's also volunteering. And intensely volunteering, like running the whole chapter.
I just don't know where people find the time.
Or consistent motivation, because I will get bursts of that, but not consistent.
Of course, I like how I'm like, where do people find the motivation? Coming from the people with full-time jobs, a podcast, children, extracurriculars.
The real irony is that we had to pause just before this because of one of your children. So it's just, we're living the life. It's close to writing a senior thesis. Maybe just as painful.
Feels the same.
All right. Well, by 1:30 p.m. that day, Suzanne was back in her apartment, spending a few hours working on more revisions to her essay and perhaps her grad school applications. Sometime before 4:30, she dropped her completed paper off, so props to her, at her advisor's office. Then she began picking up other Best Buddies participants and soon arrived at the party. After staying late to help clean up, she drove another volunteer home in the station wagon. Around 8:45, she returned the car to the Yale-owned lot on the corner of Edgewood and Howe Street, you don't need the maps yet, and proceeded to walk 2 blocks to her second-floor apartment at 258 Park Street. 20 years later, a brand new building stood in its place, but in 1998, it was a joint-use building, with Suzanne's apartment being on the second floor above a Yale police substation. So a nice, safe location.
Yeah.
To the left of the police station, there was a door leading into the lobby for Suzanne's apartment, which required an access code. Sometime shortly after, a few friends passed by Suzanne's window and asked her if she wanted to join them at the movies. Suzanne declined, stating that she planned to do schoolwork that night. At 9:02, she logged onto her Yale email account and told a female friend in German she was going to leave the GRE books. Do you know what GRE is? It's like that. It's the like the SATs, but for going into grad school.
Oh, okay.
So
All
she
right.
was studying for the grad school application or test.
Yep.
So she had borrowed a GRE book from the friend that she was emailing. Suzanne had then lent it to somebody else and was waiting for that person, who we don't know who that is, to come back. And then Suzanne would leave the book in her apartment lobby. So Suzanne told the person that she emailed the access code. But again, we don't know who the unnamed person is. Whether Suzanne met this unnamed person that night remains unknown. At 9:10, she logged off. If she made or received any calls is also unknown. Calls within Yale's telephone system were not traceable. Very sure. I'm sure everybody, I was hesitating on that because I'm sure everyone has cell phones now. Nobody uses a dorm phone. But anyway, very shortly thereafter at 9:14 p.m., Suzanne headed out on foot to the Yale Police Communications Center under the arch at Phelps Gate on Yale's old campus to return the keys to the car she had borrowed. To get there from her apartment, she had to weave through the campus, between buildings, through gates, across courtyards. Yale divides its campus into colleges, with members of each college having different levels of access. So you can only access, kind of like when we had our dorms, you could only access your dorm. Suzanne was a member of Davenport and would likely have used her card to access and pass through this part of campus on her way to return the keys. Shortly before reaching her destination, around 9:22, she encountered classmate Peter Stein, who was out for a walk. According to the Yale Daily News, Peter said she did not mention plans to go anywhere or do anything else afterward. She just said that she was very, very tired and that she was looking forward to getting a lot of sleep. That's fair. She was up all night.
Yep.
Peter also said Suzanne was not wearing a backpack and was holding one or more sheets of white 8.5 by 11-inch paper in her right hand, and that she was talking at a normal pace or walking at a normal pace and did not look nervous or excited, and that their encounter only lasted 2 or 3 minutes. After parting ways with Peter, Suzanne arrived at her destination. The Yale police officer who received the keys noted that Suzanne was not her usual self. He knew her from when he would work at the substation under her apartment and said they typically would chat for a few minutes anytime they ran across one another. That night, however, he described her as being hasty, and once she was done dropping off the keys, she continued on through the Phelps Gate onto College Street, headed towards Elm Street, rather than retracing her steps back to her apartment.
And she ran into him after she talked to Peter.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was because she was headed there to return the keys.
Okay.
A classmate recalled seeing her on his way back from the Yale-Princeton hockey game. Your cat. According to reports, what he saw was a Hispanic or black guy in a hooded sweatshirt going north, which was the direction that Suzanne was going. Behind him, also walking north, was Suzanne, and then walking in the same direction several paces behind her was a blonde man with glasses, a white guy dressed nicely. So she just had seen Suzanne and a couple people walking with her. Like, not with her, but alongside. This was the last time that Suzanne was seen alive, at least that we know.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Run a restaurant and you learn pretty quick. The sound of a crisp fry starts way before the first bite. As delivery and to-go keeps business booming,
Order for pickup.
McCain SureCrisp fries keep orders crispy.
Hey, delivery.
After the trip, the crispiness comes through. McCain SureCrisp fries. Go the distance. See how far our fries can take your business at surecrisp.com/delivery.
An interesting note from the documentary was that December 4th, 1998 was unseasonably warm because we're in Connecticut. It's cold. It's actually around that time of year right now, and it's quite cold outside. It was 73 degrees during the day that day.
Oh, wow.
And therefore, there was a lot more foot traffic that evening than usual, especially given that this area was so lit that we're about to talk about.
As Mark Twain said, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Mark Twain's from around here, too.
He sure is.
Indeed, at approximately 9:50 p.m., a Yale medical student and her boyfriend had parked in the affluent East Rock neighborhood about 2 miles from where Suzanne was last seen on College Street 30 minutes before. They got out and walked around looking at the Christmas lights. They walked up East Rock Road towards Edge Hill Road. As they walked, they heard a solitary scream, but they didn't really worry. It was so clearly a nice area that they thought they either misheard or it was a joke.
I would think
Never,
that too.
yeah, never once did they think it was someone being attacked. It's a beautiful area. Naturally, I was all over the maps on this.
Right.
So was my buddy Jeff, though.
Okay, good.
When they reached the corner of East Rock and Edge Hill, the medical student spotted a woman lying on her stomach, her feet in the road, body in the grassy area between the road and the sidewalk. She was gravely injured, but still alive. The medical student told her boyfriend to run back to her car and get her phone to call 911. Thank God she had a cell phone. This is 1998, so it's unlikely that someone would have a cell phone.
Well, if you're in the ritzy part of New Haven, maybe.
Exactly. And she's medical. I think she was actually a medical resident. The call came in at 9:55 p.m. Emergency responders arrived just 3 minutes later and attempted to save Suzanne, but she was officially pronounced dead at 10:26 p.m. at Yale New Haven Hospital. The scene was brutal. Suzanne, as I said in the intro, had been stabbed 17 times in the back and neck, and her throat had been deeply slashed.
Oh my God.
She had no defensive wounds, and interestingly, the medical examiner would later identify only one of the 17 stab wounds as fatal. Despite the violence of the attack, Suzanne's wallet, watch, and other personal items were untouched, ruling out robbery as a motive. There was no evidence of sexual assault. Suzanne also wasn't one who would have made a random attack easy. Despite being just 5'5" and weighing 125 pounds, her friends noted that she was physically quite strong. She jogged, played squash, skied, and sometimes took aerobics. This wasn't a random mugging gone wrong. It was something far more deliberate.
Okay, so it sounds, I will never understand people that just like murder to murder. Like if you're attacking somebody to, steal their watch or something, fine, but like to murder, whatever. Unfathomable.
Yes.
I was almost speechless at my own thought.
See that. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, okay, I can appreciate someone being strong, but if somebody gets the drop on you and gets a stab in, and like you can be flailing in front of you and not have defensive wounds.
Exactly. And she was laying on her stomach. Yeah. So she had been attacked from the back. So yeah, I think so. So as I said, the East Rock neighborhood is a highly desirable and picturesque residential area known for its tree-lined streets, historic charm, and beautiful homes in classic New England styles. With its close-knit community and proximity to the Ivy League school, as well as a beautiful park and downtown New Haven, it's a popular spot for families, professionals, and academics, and it even has a reputation for being one of the safer parts of New Haven. Because for those who aren't familiar with the area, New Haven is a big city and does, even especially in 1998, but even now, has quite a bit of crime. But this was a beautiful neighborhood. Wow. So the neighborhood itself was not a place you'd expect someone to be murdered in cold blood. But furthermore, what was Suzanne doing there in the first place, and how had she gotten there? It's 2 miles away from campus, so it was unlikely she'd walked. She was wearing jeans and boots, not exactly going out for a jog.
Right.
Not to mention, it would have been a very weird time for a jog, especially after being awake all night. So if we assume that she walked, even at a brisk walking pace of like 4 miles an hour, which is basically running for me, and I'm taller than she is.
Yeah.
It would have taken her nearly 40 minutes to get there, leaving her approximately 30 seconds to have been stabbed before the medical student found her and they didn't see her getting attacked.
Right.
So while it's technically possible, it's highly unlikely. Much more likely was that she had gotten a ride there, or was it voluntary, or was she abducted? We don't know. And was the person who drove her there the same person who attacked her? We don't know any of these things. But if we put aside for a second how she got there, we can think about why someone would have attacked her.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yeah. I may not have any answers, but you can ask.
Okay. So when she was last seen, she was close to campus, and where she was found was about 2 miles away from where she was last seen.
That's right. Okay. Yep. Because it's all like, Yale's right in
It's like
New Haven.
grouped together, right?
And all these streets are... well, they're close together. That doesn't make any sense. But all the streets she was traveling are all close together.
Okay.
And so
she was about 2 miles away from that.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I understand.
Yep. And that's where you let me know when you want to see the maps. But that part won't tell you much other than it's 2 miles away. So it's possible, as we briefly talked about, that Suzanne's murder was the result of a random act of violence. As I said, New Haven in the late 90s had its share of crime, and theories have emerged that Suzanne may have encountered a stranger with violent intent. But the nature of the attack, 17 stab wounds to the back and neck, suggests rage or desperation, and Suzanne, as I said, was found with her wallet and watch on her, which complicates the idea of like a simple robbery gone wrong, as you said. So if it was random, why was it such a frenzied, targeted assault?
Right.
Then there's the theory that Suzanne might have been targeted by someone stalking her, possibly a stranger or like someone she kind of knew. In the weeks before her murder, she did mention feeling unusually stressed and overwhelmed, but she was also writing her senior thesis and applying to graduate school.
Right.
So, but could someone have been watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike? Maybe. The documentary does talk about this theory, given Suzanne's trek through campus, including all those gates that need access cards, going in between buildings, and then walking against traffic on a one-way street. It would have been impossible for someone to have followed her with a car, which is really the only way it makes sense for them to have gotten to where she was murdered. Because yes, it's possible, I guess, that she could have been overpowered and then dragged to a car. But again, there were a lot of people out that night. College Street is very well populated. She had just been seen. It's, again, possible, but unlikely. A much more likely theory suggests that Suzanne might have known her attacker. Remember, she'd reportedly told a friend she was going to retrieve the GRE study book from someone. And as I said, that identity of that person has never been publicly confirmed. I don't think the police know either.
Even with the email?
because the email was to the person who she borrowed the book from, but she had then relent it to someone and was like, as soon as I get it back from that person, I will give it back to you. And that person we don't know.
Did they murder her to keep the GRE book?
They are pretty expensive, so I don't know. But it's possible. Or is it possible that they borrowed it in order to lure her? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Right.
It could have been related.
Probably, wow.
Of course, the first place the investigators are going to look is the boyfriend. So I think, is this in my dream or did we talk about this briefly? That her boyfriend, no, I was telling my husband about this story.
I was like, did we know she had a boyfriend?
Okay. No, I was telling just before I left to come here, I was telling my husband about this story and forgot that I told him all of this. So she does have a boyfriend. She has a 22-year-old boyfriend, Roman Caudillo. He was an engineering student and he was on his way back to New Haven that night after spending the evening in New York City. He had a super solid alibi. So the first student to learn about Suzanne's death was her freshman year roommate, Amy Chu. The police had entered Suzanne's apartment and dialed every number on a list taped near the phone until they reached someone, and this is like midnight.
Oh my gosh.
Another friend later recalled the horrible night, saying the police sent a car to get Amy, and they took her to identify Suzanne's body. Oh. The police told her Suzanne had expired, and so Amy just had no idea what was going on. She thought Suzanne had gotten into a problem or something. I just included that because
she didn't know what expired meant?
I think she was like probably disoriented and it's like midnight. They probably woke her up and they're just like bringing her. I'm thinking, I don't know.
Wow.
It's always a reminder that obviously Suzanne is the victim in this, but there's just all these little things like that affected her, I'm sure, affected that poor woman's life.
Yeah, that's quite
forever.
the memory to have from college.
Now, grappling with many of the same questions that we have been, the investigation began with a wide net, but attention quickly narrowed to one individual, Suzanne's senior thesis advisor, James Van de Velde, whose office, sorry, that's all one sentence, whose office, I was proud of myself for saying Van de Velde, whose office Suzanne had visited the night of her death to drop off her senior paper. Jim, as he went by, was a lecturer at Yale and a prominent member of the university's faculty. He grew up in Orange, Connecticut, as the second of three children to James and Lois Van de Velde. A standout student at Amity Regional High School, he excelled as a student council president, soccer team captain, and a National Honor Society member. At Yale, he majored in political science, participated in a Russian chorus, and traveled to Asia for internships, graduating with honors. He later earned a PhD in international security studies from Tufts and worked on U.S.-Soviet disarmament issues during a presidential management internship at the Pentagon and State Department.
So he was sketchy and dumb is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I don't even know how they let him in. No. In 1998, he joined the U.S. Naval Intelligence Reserves, earning a top secret clearance and analyzing international drug trade operations,
and
which sounds so cool.
This is their best suspect?
Well, okay, I debated including all this information, and both the article and the documentary have way more information, but I do think it's important to get a picture of, like, this is who the police latched onto very early on. And the main reason is because of the timing. He had just been not even the last person to really see her, but we'll talk a little bit more about their situation. But so in 1993, he returned to Yale, actually as the dean of Saybrook College, which is like a subset of Yale, and then became a professor. During the summer of that year, Jim had reconnected with a woman he had dated previously, but their relationship ended disastrously. In the fall, the woman, a local television reporter, reportedly went to the police claiming that Jim had harassed her, including allegations of stalking and looking into her window. While the police have not confirmed this complaint, local press later reported that two women from a local TV station had spoken to the police about their experiences with Jim. One was a friend of the first woman to whom Jim had anonymously sent flowers. That's not her. I'm sure there's more to the story.
Right.
That, as written, is not harassment.
Right.
She discovered his identity through the florist and learned of his involvement with her friend. And so, I don't know, maybe there's something there. But Jim's attorney stated that no formal complaint or dates were provided by the police, and Jim was never arrested or questioned. While one officer allegedly warned Jim to stay away, Jim denied that this ever happened, and he also flat out denies stalking his ex-girlfriend. So he said, she said, but a little bit of like questionable. You don't randomly get accused of stalking.
You also
most
don't
of the time.
admit it most of the time.
Exactly. So
you're like, I did. You're right. I was a total creep. Sorry.
Yes. Usually the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So.
A little too clingy. He's a stage 5 clinger.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
Yep. In contrast with the turbulence in his personal life, Jim was renowned for his teaching and the quality of his courses, including the field trips he'd take his students on. In September 1998, Suzanne was accepted into Jim's seminar, Strategy and Policy in the Conduct of War. She was among the 169 students who had applied for the 40 places in that course.
Oh, wow.
And this is like top of the top. You have 169 Yale students applying for this. So she decided to do her senior essay with him as her advisor, choosing a subject in Jim's area of expertise, the international terrorist Osama bin Laden, who is believed to have masterminded the bombing of the American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. By all accounts, he and Suzanne he being Jim, not Osama bin Laden, and Suzanne had a professional relationship, but nothing beyond that. But at some point during the semester, Suzanne's enthusiasm seemed to falter, and she didn't go on at either of the 2 field trips that the class had.
Okay.
Now,
That's a little weird.
It is, because she's so motivated. Now, it could be unrelated to Jim. There could be personal things going on, that motivation problem we talked about. But by November, it appears that the professional relationship between Jim and Suzanne had broken down almost completely. Although Jim had written her a glowing recommendation for graduate school in late October, Suzanne began to feel that he had no time for her. According to a friend of Suzanne's, she had tried repeatedly to meet with Jim about her senior essay and had felt that she was ignored. In the weeks before she died, the friend said that Suzanne had complained bitterly about a bunch of things in that class, and especially his lack of support for her project. He had shown no interest in her work. Now, Jim spent most of the evening, Friday, December 4th, at his office. A friend who stopped by around 6 p.m. to ask him to go to the movie says he was planning to work all evening. According to his lawyer, Jim went over Suzanne's revisions that evening and was going to give her his comments the following morning. He took a short break at one point and walked up the street to Ingles Rink, which is where that Yale-Princeton hockey game was, then returned to his office and went home, which is where he was alone at the time of the killing. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Jim was questioned by police, but of course denied any involvement in her death. Despite several rounds of interviews and polygraph tests, no evidence and no physical evidence was found linking him to the crime.
Wow, he passed the polygraph test?
He passed, and he went and did a lot. Naturally, I read this and didn't put it in my notes, and here we are. He spoke very matter of fact, including not really ever having contractions, like really just very, I do not think this, like very matter of fact. And he also went to the police like without an attorney and just went willingly and spoke a bunch, and they still didn't have anything, like no contradictions or anything. So why did the police focus on him without any sound evidence? They even ultimately leaked his name to the media.
Oh, no.
And that is an act that the mayor's office allegedly signed off on. But why they did that, part of it stemmed from proximity. Jim lived near the area where Suzanne's body was found, making him geographically convenient. But probably most significantly, they thought it would ease panic, and they were also getting a lot of pressure from Yale to do so. It was decision time for Ivy Leagues, and this was bad press, not just locally, but internationally, given Suzanne's heritage. But maybe there is something legitimate to it. Remember the student who said she saw Suzanne being followed by a nicely dressed blonde guy with glasses when she was walking back from the hockey game?
Does that describe him?
It does. And once Jim's face was plastered all across the news, the woman who saw him and reportedly started shaking, saying, "I got chills. I didn't know James Van de Velde. I go home, I turn on the news, and I see him. This guy talking to reporters. He's blonde with glasses. I couldn't believe what I saw. I went back to my notes and saw the description I wrote, and I saw a blonde man with glasses."
Oh, wow.
The man she claims she saw was walking behind Suzanne near Phelps Gate the night of the murder so closely resembled Jim's image on TV that she thought for sure it was him. Now, that's a little tough because it's like validating. You don't really remember who you saw, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that's him, but still sketchy.
Yeah.
And as I said, according to his colleague, Jim did briefly go to the hockey game, so it's very likely he was out there, but was it just a coincidence? Like, it's not even like she saw the blonde guy, like, attacking Suzanne.
Yeah.
He literally could have just happened to be walking maybe not even near, I don't know.
That would be so unfortunate.
Yes. And without considering any of like the physical evidence or anything like that, I will say that the development of their interactions throughout the semester kind of gives me the vibes that maybe Jim did approach Suzanne, who turned him down, and then their relationship was uncomfortable.
Oh.
I'm obviously lacking a whole lot of information.
How old was he?
30 something.
Okay.
That's a good
she
question.
was 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a drastic, and I'm sure age doesn't really matter.
Enough.
But no, he was young.
If you're talking about a 21-year-old student, any teaching capacity is sketchy.
And now, even if that was the case, that's just discomfort. That's a huge leap from that to murder. So, and then Jim being made a public suspect so early actually had an immediate effect on his career. Yale chose to cancel Jim's spring 1999 classes, citing his presence as a major distraction, which is fair, but also unfair.
That's fucked up.
It damaged his reputation and academic career. Throughout the years, there would be much criticism about the focus on Jim so early, especially given the other evidence found at the scene. The first significant piece of evidence is the tip of the knife that had broken off and was lodged in her skull.
Oh, no.
This knife tip was consistent with a common household variety described as a 4 to 5 inch blade typically used in kitchens. However, the handle or the rest of the knife was never recovered, leaving questions about the murder weapon unanswered. The FBI did do an analysis on the characteristics of the knife tip, but that report has never been made public. Now, in my opinion, if it was any information or any connections or gave us a bunch of information about who her murderer was, her murder would probably be solved.
Also, that would be not very compelling evidence to be like, it was a knife with a blade that you would find in a kitchen, and this guy has knives in his kitchen. Well, he has a kitchen too, but he has knives in his kitchen. And it's like, okay.
So it's like, yes, it's frustrating that the results aren't public just because we need to know information, but it's also like, it's probably not that important.
Right.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. We all know the old saying about teaching a man to fish, and as parents, we want our kids to learn the things that will set them up for success. So this holiday season, give kids money skills that last well beyond 2024 with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app made for families, where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely with parental controls built in. Sign up today at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you've had that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Another much talked about piece of evidence was a Fresca bottle, and it's a bottle, not a can, found on or near the sidewalk where Suzanne's body lay. Suzanne's fingerprints were found on the bottle, as well as a partial palm print of an unknown person. The Fresca bottle raises questions. Did Suzanne drop it herself? Was it discarded by her killer? Investigators have never publicly confirmed whether Suzanne had purchased or consumed a Fresca that night, but we do know that Fresca was Suzanne's preferred drink, so very likely that she did.
I also drank Fresca in 98.
Oh my God. Was it out of a bottle or a can?
A can.
Okay.
Did you know they make alcoholic Fresca now?
I did, but I didn't.
Good.
Oh, we had this discussion because you were like, do you want to try it? And I was like, sure. I was like, but I don't like Fresca. You were like, you're not going to like this then.
Yes.
Which I didn't. I did try it, but I still don't like it. Okay, so Peter Stein, who was the classmate who saw Suzanne after or just before she dropped off the keys.
When she was chill, right?
Yeah, she was fine. But he did say she was not carrying a Fresca at that point, and she didn't have a backpack or a bag or anything that she could have had it in. So if we assume that the bottle were hers, she had to have purchased it at some point after this interaction. The only place that sold that type of Fresca, which was again in that bottle, was a Krauser's convenience store on the corner of Elm and York Street. So assuming that it was indeed her Fresca found, she must have gone this way so that you would have gotten to if you kept going the way that she went, and you could eventually, I'm pointing with my hands, I will show you the map, you could eventually hit that convenience store and then go back towards her apartment.
Okay, 2 questions.
Yes.
Doesn't that make the time frame even more difficult because she has to stop off now and buy a Fresca?
Yes.
Second of all, don't they make delicious sandwiches?
Krausers. Is it the rolls you're thinking of?
Krausers. But isn't that a deli?
I
I feel like there's Krausers deli all over Hamden and
think
New
it's
Haven.
a convenience store is what you're thinking of.
But I think they sell sandwiches.
They probably do. And Fresca. Yeah.
But like deli fresh sandwiches for
you can
for
keep asking.
Quinnipiac
You can keep
students.
asking me.
Did you eat a sandwich is what I'm asking.
I have not had a sandwich from Krausers.
Okay.
Okay. Is that
I'll
are
be
you
doing
good?
a deep dive into this
Are
issue
you good
after
now?
the fact.
Okay. All right. So, but this is where it gets really interesting. Although the other roads that Suzanne might have traveled that night were really well populated, the section of Elm Street between York, where the convenience store was, and Park, where her apartment was not. It was isolated and dark, and some places had gone out of business and were boarded up. So it was exactly the kind of place that someone could be abducted. Now, I said this earlier, but if that's the case, it is a little strange that they might have abducted her and she brought her Fresca bottle in the car. I just like that it also got out at the murder location. I don't know.
There were no signs of struggle, though.
No.
Like, if they got the jump on her when she was over there, what if she just got nervous and walked really fast over there?
I mean,
and then someone got the jump on her.
Over to the intersection where she was murdered?
Yeah, like borderline jog.
She would have had to sprint for 2 miles in jeans. Like, it is, again, technically possible, but extremely...
What's the time frame?
It's like if you assume that she went and bought the soda at Krausers, and I think it was 1.9 miles to be exact. I think she would have had to buy the because she dropped the keys off, and then she saw the college student at like 9:25, and the Yale student saw her at like 9:50. I mean, you're talking like 15 minutes. That's not the right math.
25 minutes.
But it would have taken, at 4 miles an hour, would have taken 40 minutes. So I can't do that math fast enough. But I mean, she would have had to been booking it, and that's not even accounting for her getting the soda. It's
Okay.
it's like she would have had to have. And why on earth would she have sprinted there?
That's not a sprint, though. 2 miles, even say it's 20 minutes, a 10-minute mile, if she's in good shape and is like a runner, I get she's in boots, but that's not a sprint. That's a really quick jog.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But I still think it's all right.
For people who are very athletic, they're like, that's not a jog at all. That's like
we're like, she must have been so out of breath.
I'm like, that's Olympic
2 miles
pace.
straight.
Impossible. She must have been abducted.
That's hysterical. Okay, so
it's possible.
And that, honestly, we're going to be saying that a lot in this case because we don't have answers and it is confusing. There's like just enough information to make it frustrating. And even if so then you take, all right, so abduction seems weird because no signs of struggle. She's got the Fresca bottle. Then you're like, all right, well, did she go with someone she knew? And then I'm thinking, was she being stalked? If so, how is that possible given her path through by someone with a car? And if it was just someone she ran into, like how on earth, what are the odds that she ran into them on that street at that time? I don't know. None of it makes sense to me.
I think the universe, like the planets aligned and Suzanne just had the worst fucking luck.
Yes. And the person who killed her has the best fucking luck.
Yeah.
And then we talked briefly about how it likely wasn't an abduction, but I will say the documentary notes that most of the random robberies in New Haven were drug related, so they were often looking for cash. And so Jeff, who did the documentary, says it's possible they could have grabbed her and then drove towards East Rock Park, where a lot of drug transactions happened. Suzanne had jewelry but no cash, so he thought it's possible that made them angry, and then they stabbed her and left her body and like tossed out the Fresca because it was evidence. Again, he's reaching for, literally, I'm not kidding you, he went through every possible bit of every scenario.
And that palm print has never been identified?
Correct. Yep.
I mean, it could have just been left there from the cashier.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
I mean, that's really aggressive to like palm a soda.
Yeah, let me just get the barcode here. Yeah, I don't know. And then it's also, even if you follow all that and assume she was driven by her abductor to this intersection and then murdered like in the car, the Yale medical student had heard a scream And so it's unlikely that would have happened. I don't know. Just nothing, no one theory exactly matches up to make sense. Everything has a little bit of a confusion thing. This reminds me of Phoebe Handschuck, where we were like, it works like 96%, and then that 4% is like, nope, that doesn't work. And
Correct.
Therefore, that theory can't be true.
That case frustrates me too.
Yep. If I ever listened back to any of our cases, I would go back and listen to that one, but I won't do that.
No.
As time went on, more and more information surfaced, at least publicly. Again, we never know what's happening behind the scenes. Much attention was given to a light-colored van, described as tan or brown, that was reportedly seen parked or driving near the intersection of East Rock Road and Edge Hill Ave, close to where Suzanne's body was discovered. Edge Hill Road, sorry. Law enforcement initially considered the van as a possible lead, suspecting it could have belonged to someone who either had information about or was involved in the crime. It wasn't a minivan, but more commercial, but there was nothing written on it, so really, really tough to find any information.
It didn't have free candy scratched into the side?
No, not that creepy. It's tan, not white, So despite their efforts to identify the van or its owner, investigators have been unable to definitively link it in any way to Suzanne's murder. They did impound a brown 1982 Dodge van, but nothing came out of that. And in my opinion, that doesn't even look, it's not commercial. Like, it's a regular, like, kind of, it's a sketchy van. But anyway, it remains one of the many unverified leads in the case. Now, clearly, there were more questions than answers at this point. Frustrated by the lack of progress and seemingly unfounded focus on him, Jim, along with some of his colleagues, strongly and eventually publicly encouraged Yale to hire their own private investigators to study the case. In December 2000, under additional pressure from the Jovin family, Yale relented and hired a team of investigators. It was at their insistence that the New Haven PD allowed the state forensics lab to finally analyze Suzanne's fingernail scrapings for DNA.
They hadn't before?
No, because they said they had such a backlog of cases and didn't find anything. But neither the resulting DNA nor the palm print from the Fresca bottle were a match to Jim. So that obviously doesn't tell us who did it. Right. And it's still possible other things, but unlikely that any of that, at least not just unlikely, none of that physical evidence matched to Jim.
Okay. But there was, so wait, let me clarify. They did recover physical evidence?
Fingernail scrapings, but they don't have it matched. It's so Yale, this was again through Yale, and they have not made their investigation public, nor have they explained why it's been secret. So there's no more information about that, just that it did not match to Jim.
Okay.
Now again,
so they didn't confirm that there was an unknown male DNA that was removed from her fingernails.
Just that
didn't match
we
him.
know that it's a partial print, a palm print that is unknown, but it's unknown more information. So very frustrating. But again, if it were like, but we know who it is, like, they're gonna give that information to the authorities.
I'm gonna start doing this at work. When they're like, "What do you think?" and I'm going to be like, "My investigation is ongoing. I'm withholding. Withholding my discussion until I'm complete with my investigation."
Yeah, you should. It might actually work.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah. So despite all of this information and these tempting leads, on September 1st, 2006, it was officially classified as a cold case. But it was not added to the cold case unit website. This was because it had actually been reassigned back to New Haven in June of that year with 4 hand-picked retired detectives on the case.
I love a good case review, though, because we've seen him solved.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, this one did not.
No, but we did
get
more. That.
We did get more information.
Okay.
So at the end of June 2008, this task force revealed that only days after the crime, a female motorist told police that she was driving in the area of Whitney Ave and Huntington Street, which is about a block away from where Suzanne's body was found, at about 10 p.m., so right after Suzanne's murder, when she saw a white male in his 20s or 30s with an athletic build, well-groomed hair, dark pants, a loose-fitting greenish jacket, running like his life depended on it, on the opposite direction from where Suzanne Jovin was killed, and then disappeared onto church property. There was a church nearby.
How do you remember this 10 years later?
I don't know, because it was days after the crime that she said this.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think
they uncovered it.
Right.
Like, okay.
And made it public. It's a little sketchy because it's very unclear when things were actually known. I'm going to give not really a spoiler, but kind of what I was going to close with, which is it's the general frustration with this case is that there was hyper focus on Jim. And I get it. Like, I get why they were looking at him.
They're
but
trying to
almost,
prove he did it.
Bingo. And
Instead
so
of
there's
solving
all
it.
these things that are coming out that are like, oh, by the way, we also had this witness here. And it's not solving anything.
Right.
But it's very frustrating because it's like, had this all come out in 1998 or 1999, would we have known? Would people have come forward? And a lot of the documentary talks about how if you are a witness who's like, oh yeah, they got him, like, I don't need to give you any more information, you may kind of let it go. Whereas if you think it's fully unsolved, you maybe would have given some information. So this witness begged police to take her seriously. In response, they showed her a picture of Jim. And despite having, again, no evidence on him other than a hunch. And when they showed her the picture, she said, nope, not who I saw. They then brought her to see him in person.
OMG.
And again, she was like, no, that's not who it is. And at this time, this task force released a sketch of the running man, as they call it, based on this witness's description. For what it's worth, the medical student who had found Suzanne's body and potentially heard her scream said she had not seen anyone sprinting past her that night, nor had she seen the tan or brown van. It's, again, a lot of conflicting reports.
And it's just piecemeal because people are close but not together.
And nobody knows if anything's related. Are these things was that just a van driving around? That's possible too. In late October 2011, a man named Giles Carter, who lives nearby, was walking with a friend at Edgerton Park, which is on Edge Hill Road, 2 blocks north of East Rock Road. So all in the vicinity of Suzanne's murder. Giles, who met the man, we'll talk about him in a second, in 2008, says the person was a Yale graduate student in 1998. This man's real name has not been released, so he's referred to those who are familiar with the case as Billy. While Giles and Billy were walking through the park, Giles vividly recalls Billy saying, "There's something you should know. I'm obsessed with the murder of Suzanne Jovin."
Oh.
Billy had been a first-year architecture student in 1998, speaking randomly and seemingly nonstop with interjections of psychosexual illusions. Billy explained that soon after the murder, he had emerged from sleeping in his room to find his roommate watching the news where they were talking about Suzanne's death. He told Giles, "They'll never catch me." And then he elaborated to say that those words were meant as a joke, but ever since then, he, Billy, has lived in fear that police were constantly surveilling him, trying to trap him into confessing to a crime he did not commit.
This feels solved.
Yeah, yep. On the verge of crying, Billy confided to Giles about how totally and utterly unhappy he was and that his obsession with Suzanne's murder had prevented him from ever having a relationship with a woman. Soon after, Billy sent Giles a 30-page manifesto called Prisoner 0879431.
The fuck?
It began with a single line, the word help in all capital letters. It went on to detail Billy's experience in the hospital for a mental health crisis and the wild goose chase that he went on to obtain any and all paperwork that might have referenced his obsession with the murder. Because again, he thought the police were after him. The document also unveiled that the fact that right before he began graduate classes at Yale, late summer 1998, he became estranged from his family and had been put on medicine to help him deal with it. So what does all this mean? Did he have something to do with Suzanne's murder, or was he a sick man whose mind had latched on to this tragic event?
Both?
Yeah. Unfortunately, these questions would forever go unanswered.
Why?
In 2012, Billy was driving on I-95 in West Haven when he hit a Jersey barrier, exited his car, and walked onto the highway. He began running, grabbed onto the side of a pickup truck, hauled himself onto it, and then jumped in front of an oncoming car.
OMG.
It was deemed an accident, but Giles and many others believe it was suicide.
Yeah.
In fact, in December 1998, the exact date is unclear, and I'm so annoyed about that because it is so significant. He'd contacted a lawyer asking for information about transferring the deed of his condo to his niece in a will, despite the fact that he was just 38 years old. When the lawyer expressed his concern, Billy responded, "They're out to get me. They're closing in." The lawyer got Billy to say he wouldn't do anything to hurt himself, and the two ended the call. And then Billy called him back to say something big was going to happen that day. and he wouldn't tell the lawyer because he didn't want to involve him. And I desperately want to know, was this December 4th, 1998?
Yeah.
I think it has to be. Like,
It's
why,
close
right?
enough. It's close
Exactly.
enough.
But if Billy was really responsible for Suzanne's death, how did she end up 2 miles from campus? Did she go with Billy? I don't even know if she knew him. According to Jill's, Billy did have a history of stalking women. But again, that doesn't make him capable or responsible for murder necessarily. Right. I will say it gives me Matthew Mueller vibes, where he was just way off. He was not doing well. And there are police reports from a woman who said Billy became violent when she rejected him at a club and that she actually feared for her life.
Oh, God, that type of behavior is such a red flag. Mm-hmm. What was the other case? Was it Kristen Smart? Wasn't that guy super sketchy?
Yeah, I can't remember. Paul, right? Yeah. Yeah, it was exactly that. It's like, yes, listen to all of the red flags.
Right.
Also, Billy was a runner. He had done track all through high school and college. He was 25 in 1998. He was the right height and weight. He was blonde, and he was often nicely dressed, and he wore a very similar jacket to what the witness says the running man was wearing.
I'm telling you she ran those 2 miles.
Yeah.
In boots.
I guess. I mean, and he was maybe he was chasing her. I mean, genuinely, no one knows, because again, the cars could have been unrelated. Mm-hmm. I guess Billy drove a blue Camry, so probably that car wasn't his, but that doesn't mean his Camry wasn't there.
Right.
Either way, Jills reported his concerns to this task force, who said they'd look into it. A week later, the lawyer who'd drawn up Billy's will received a call from Billy's phone. In what was evidently a butt dial, the lawyer could hear Billy's parents in the background reading and deleting emails from Billy's computer.
What?
Jills called the police back and told them what he'd heard, worried crucial evidence was being erased.
Yep.
And it was. After deleting the emails, Billy's parents physically destroyed the hard drive.
Oh my God.
His parents later admitted that they knew of Billy's obsession with Suzanne's murder, but he'd assured them that he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, okay.
The police did seem to take Jill's concerns seriously, but he heard nothing more on it. But that's not really telling, because they're not going to report every finding of his case. In 2015, so you mentioned the case review, so this task force looked at everything. So now we're in 2015. They released a 2-page statement that didn't mention the van, didn't mention Billy, but did mention East Rock Road and Whitney Ave, which is a block away from where Suzanne's body was found at the corner of East Rock and Edge Hill Road.
Okay.
This statement indicated that a witness told investigators about walking past a white man and a white woman arguing as they were leaving the front entrance of the nearby apartment building at 750 Whitney Avenue around 9:30 p.m., which is a little early for our case.
Right.
A second witness who lived at 750 Whitney corroborated. Are you proud of me? I said
Yes.
it. I almost removed it and did a different word, and I was like, no, Laura.
You
can do
nailed
this.
it. You stuck the landing.
I'm only doing it once. Hearing the argument. Shortly after this, the witness reported hearing screams coming from the area of East Rock Road. That is another example of that argument could have been unrelated. The screams could have been Suzanne's. We have no idea. No idea. And the timing, as I said, doesn't really work. In order for it possibly to be Suzanne and the killer, it conflicts with the other statement of the students returning from the hockey game, seeing her walking on College Street at the same time. That even with a car is not possible.
I'm so thankful for technology, because nowadays they'd be like, her phone shows that she was moving and she was in a car, or her Fitbit showed that she ran 2 miles.
Or security cameras, we would have known who, when she
caught
bought
her running on Ring cameras,
or the buying the soda at Krauser's, they would have had, so anyway. Now, back at the corner of Edge Hill and East Rock, the report noted additional witness statements indicating there was an argument between a man and a woman around that time. Specifically, one witness who had turned onto East Rock from Whitney heard an argument as he approached the intersection with Edge Hill. So again, coming toward where Suzanne was murdered. Mm-hmm. The argument was loud between a man and a woman, and the words were consistent with other witness reports, is what this task force report said.
Okay.
The words were, "Why are you doing this to me? How can you do this?" Now, in the documentary, Jeff says, it's not exactly what you would say to someone if they're stabbing you, but maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know. This same witness also reported seeing a mid-sized light color vehicle parked there. Another witness driving on East Rock in the opposite direction, so away from Edge Hill, also reported seeing this kind of vehicle parked there. The witness reported seeing the driver's front door was open and the headlights and interior lights were on, so it looked like somebody had just pulled over and it kind of immediately gotten out versus parking there to go look at Christmas lights. Now, obviously, a mid-sized sedan is not the same as a van, but given the absence of any mentions of the van in the report, it sounds like they believe that this car, not the van, may be related. The location of the car parked on East Rock Road was especially noticeable because any visitors of the nearby houses would have parked in front of them. So like the walkways up to the houses were on Edge Hill, not on East Rock. So it's like weird that someone would have parked there and it stood out to anyone who knew the area.
Okay.
The condition of the car, as I said, with the door open, just gives the impression that somebody had pulled over quickly. Given that the Fresca bottle and Suzanne's body were found nearby, it's unlikely, though, that she was like feeling like she was in grave danger, because wouldn't she have run? Like if they'd pulled over and she jumped out of the car,
right,
she probably would have been found, a block away or something. So that kind of gives credence to the theory that she knew her killer, if all of this is Suzanne, which is a big if in the first place.
But the Fresca bottle, that had her DNA on it? Like they're sure that she...
That's positive. That had her fingerprints.
Okay.
Yep. But still, even if you assume that's all Suzanne, that's her killer, that's who everybody heard, and if that's related to the Sprinter, and if that's all the same person, what happened to the car? Like, there was a car there. There was not a car when the medical student found Suzanne. And Suzanne was alive when her killer left her. So it's just so many questions. And the problem is we don't know. We don't know anything. All of the information is what I have given you. There's not enough to make connections to any one thing. As far as what I think happened, I mean, I also agree that Billy seems to be the most obvious suspect, but it's just one of those, there's just not enough to, even if he were alive, to make that firm connection. And there has been a ton of controversy around the focus on Jim in the beginning, and could we have had some of these answers? Would people have been more, willing to come forward? I didn't write it again in my notes, but I read it that there was an additional witness who was like either in a taxi or driving by or something, and had initially been willing to work with them, and then after time decided not to because like it sounded like they had the killer. So there's all these weird things about when evidence was made available in public. And Jeff, who did the documentary, thinks that it's all like to basically cover up for a shit investigation. I mean, I'm not like personally and emotionally invested in this in the same way. So to me, I'm just like, I think it's a mess. I don't know how much of, bad intention there is, but, anyway, so I have no idea.
I don't know that it's bad intention, but it's so classic. We've seen it and we've had this discussion time and time again, but you lose critical evidence when you spend your time, even when you have evidence to the contrary, when you spend your time trying to prove someone did it, that you have evidence that he didn't do it.
Exactly. Well, and I wonder, they didn't do the DNA analysis for a while, but still, it's just very frustrating. And it is like, I get why he was on the radar, but there should have been so many other people or people we didn't even know to think about. Like, what if it was the cop that was that took the keys from her? I don't know. There's a million people what if it was Peter Stein? I'm kidding. It's not any of you people. Don't get mad at me. But really, like, we have no idea. And like you said, to miss all of that possible evidence to collect is just very frustrating. I do have a couple of other notes. I wanted to mention that Dr. Henry Lee, our favorite renowned forensic scientist, recalled volunteering to help the New Haven police at the time of Suzanne's murder. And according to him, he said, but they said, "Thank you, Dr. Lee. We do not need any help."
Oh.
However, he said that police later did call him and asked him to examine Suzanne's clothing and the Fresca can or bottle. Dr. Lee said, "I spent all of Christmas processing the evidence. I tried my best," which I just had to mention him. I will also mention on January 12th, 2001, Jim sued Quinnipiac University for wrongful dismissal from a graduate program. He dropped the lawsuit on January 26th, 2004 after receiving an $80,000 settlement. On December 7th, 2001, Jim sued the New Haven Police Department in federal court, claiming they violated his civil rights by publicly naming him him as the sole suspect in a case while acknowledging other suspects existed. So they kept saying they had a pool of suspects, but his was the only name they ever said. And he added Yale University as a defendant in this case on April 15th, 2003. On March 15th, 2004, it was dismissed with prejudice and the state law claims without prejudice. What does that mean? I
Say it one more time.
So
the federal claims with prejudice means that he cannot file them again in federal court.
Oh,
and the state. Oh, so it's they're saying it's
without prejudice.
So they're saying that it's a state issue. Essentially, is how I would read it. So there wasn't jurisdiction in the federal court, so he can't file again in federal court, but he could file that suit in the state court.
Interesting, and he requested reconsideration. I think to that assessment in May 2006, leading to the reinstatement of both claims on December 11th, 2007.
In the federal court?
I said both claims, so I assumed that's what it meant.
Oh, interesting.
I figured if you didn't know, it wasn't a big deal, but I thought you might know.
I mean, I don't know what the grounds are, but with prejudice means like you're done.
Yeah,
and without prejudice basically means like you're going to get another shot.
I could have Googled it, but Marina AI is way more fun. On June 3rd, 2013, New Haven and Yale settled with Jim. As part of the settlement, the city paid Jim $200,000 and Yale did not disclose its contribution. I'm on Jim's side on this. They dragged
It was like borderline defamation.
Dragged him. And he was the only face that, so if anyone watched it, they for sure thought he did it.
Yeah.
And perhaps more importantly for Jim, state's attorney Michael Dearington publicly confirmed for the first time that Jim was no longer a suspect, a day late and a dollar short, I would say.
Yep.
Now, back to Suzanne. In 1999, during the smaller ceremony at Davenport after the main commencement, Yale conferred a degree on Suzanne. Aww. She graduated cum laude with distinction in both of her majors. Her classmates had placed a slab of black stone as a memorial to her in Davenport's smaller courtyard. Nestled in a flower bed with 2 flowering trees, it reads, Suzanne N. Jovin, in loving memory, January 26, 1977 to December 4th, 1998.
Makes my heart hurt.
Me too. Every year, her family and the New Haven community remember Suzanne, her bright future, her life tragically cut short, and the unsolved mystery that surrounds her death. In 2020, the case was briefly reinvigorated when new DNA testing and forensic techniques offered a glimmer of hope. But as of now, no significant breakthrough has emerged. Still, Suzanne's family isn't giving up, and they continue to hope that one day the truth will come to light. Anyone with information about Suzanne's murder can contact the tip line about the case at 866-623-8058 or email Jovin, and that's JOVIN.case@ct.gov. There is still a $150,000 reward for information that leads to conviction. Additionally, Jeff Mitchell, I've mentioned him only 1,000 times in this. So he is embarking on a GoFundMe campaign to continue to raise money to work on the case. He also wants specifically to process more DNA, process more evidence. And he said that's preferable to asking the state's overworked crime lab to retest the evidence. So if you would like to donate, the link to that campaign is GoFundMe.com/JusticeForSuzanne. The customized email address for the campaign is justiceforsuzannejovin@gmail.com. So what a case. Way more answers than questions.
Way more questions than answers.
It was coming out of my mouth and I was like, that seems wrong.
I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Way more answers than questions is not what I've given you.
Correct. I can't believe I've never heard of this case.
Same. We have been around the area. I mean, I guess it was earlier than at least I was down in New Haven, but it's I just hadn't even heard. It didn't ring any bells, and none of the details did.
Me neither.
So thank you, Sarah M.
Yeah, thank you. I'm surprised more people haven't suggested it too with like a Connecticut case.
I don't think they have, but I'm also terrible at making sure that I have connected all of, if somebody's suggested a case that has already been suggested, I try to make that connection, but that's all we can do.
We haven't done an unsolved in a long time.
That's partially why I did it. And I do have a couple others in the queue because I was going to do a set of 3, and you can see why this had to be its own case.
It did. So you're going to torture me with unsolved cases?
Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
Okay, well,
if you're going to keep talking about murdered children.
I have a child abuse case in the hopper,
I'm
sorry.
Why?
Because I started the book. I'm almost done with the book. I started it when I was researching all those other cases, and I was like,
Amazon
I didn't
keeps
mean
suggesting. It's
I
like
know.
you might like.
I really think it is. I don't know
Well,
what.
Stop.
Well, this is on like the New York Times bestseller list, so I started reading it, not knowing what it was about. That was like at the same time that I was doing Sylvia Likens, and I was like, oh, this is like not a good type of case to have.
Please stop.
Okay,
Please
well,
stop.
you know, tit for
you're,
tat.
if you're currently enjoying listening to Grimm, make sure you're getting the most in between episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Grimm Crime Podcast, and on Facebook, search Grimm, a true crime podcast.
I'm sorry, what are we searching?
You can search a codcast. Just let me know what you find. If you're sick of hearing my episodes, this is an old, I must have copied this. This is not my fourth one in a row. You can subscribe to Patreon and listen to bonus episodes. You can do that by searching Grimm, a true crime podcast or codcast on the Patreon app or website. Depending on the tier you choose, you'll get that shout out you heard in the beginning, access to the bonus episodes, and even access to our supremely awesome Discord server. You can send us an email at grimmcrimepodcast@gmail.com, and you can send us case suggestions there or Instagram or wherever you want to. Wherever you listen, please rate us, or even better, leave a written review. Thank you for being here, and listen, learn, and stay alive until next time, because the future is grim.